All right, welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Children of God pod. If you haven't been watching already, my name is Wyatt. We got Enze over here in the pink shirt. Brett over there on the second couch. We got 2 cameras, 3 microphones, 2 couches, and we're really just trying to spread the word of God. I don't know why that's kind of stuck in as the intro as of now. We might change it up. But, usually we have a bunch of lists of what we would like to talk about. And we're actually changing that up today. We're in a constant state of reflection on how we can continue to be better. So there's not going to be a lot of looking at these books, like in the immense amount of preparation that's kind of been going into the previous episodes. But don't get me wrong, we're still just doing stuff. We're just kind of changing it up and that sort of thing. But instead of, going through that list is like, what were like your biggest takeaways from last week?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So my biggest takeaway on last week was to really like make sure if someone asks me if I forgive them or whatever, to actually make sure that I'm not going to bring it up or like still hold a grudge against that person, which is something sometimes I tend to do sometimes, but just really making sure that I've actually forgiven them, really something that stuck with me from last time.
Just like practicing what you're actually like preaching, that sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah. I think it caused me to like really think of like what, like I had to go back through and almost do a word study just on grace, of like going back through, and just as I gave my definition of forgiveness, it caused me to have to go back through last week and like, okay, like what do I really think about God's grace? What do I know about it? How does that like personally affect me and help me live my life? And so that's been really helpful, of just going back and like refreshing myself, because I think it's something we can just accept of I have God's grace, but like what does that actually mean? And going back through and like just almost like a refresher course on what that really means and what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess the one thing that I was kind of doing, and I had legit like 6 or 7 pages that are just full of ink. And I was like, as much as preparation is good, and I'm going to continue to like prepare and that sort of thing for next episodes, is I was trying to really focus on what I could learn throughout my own research, and like kind of trying to shape myself in that sort of way, than actually just sitting down and like also like really hearing what you guys have to say. And it was more of like I was comparing myself during the episode to be like, and I've said this a couple times, like you have it so easy. You can forgive other people. It's just more or less yourself. And I was like, oh shoot, there's been so many times in my life that I'm still trying to like work through this forgiveness. And then it comes back to that wow moment that I wrote. It was like, oh, like it's almost as hard as you're going to make it. So kind of shaping and like changing my outlook on it after what you guys have said was very impactful. So, I just thank you guys for your like input and that sort of thing. And I'm going to continue to have you guys lead in these conversations as well. But before we get into this sort of episode of serving, I do want to mention, I know you said this before the podcast, but we're going to have to call you out, dude. How was that journaling experience going? Have you been thinking about it? Is it just something that you're just like, I don't necessarily think it's going to be like a very useful tool for me? Or
I think it will be useful. It's more just finding like a reason to use it, which, as we've talked about, the way we're going to like, I think, go about just changing in some sense our preparation process for this. I think that becomes like, that gives me a reason to like use it. It gives me an outline. It gives me a purpose behind it, rather than just, I struggle to just start something, but like that gives me a purpose. And so hopefully next week I can come back with it actually having been written in, which I know I said I would this week too, but
hey, third time's a charm.
Second, it would be the second.
Second time's a charm.
Yeah.
Second time.
he really had to count on his fingers from 1 to 2.
Second time's a charm.
All right. So do you guys want to mention what you guys think serving is, and kind of what the scripture says about it? Or
Brett, you can go first. You can go first this time.
Yeah. I think off the top of my head, serving is more like, you have to be willing to put, like, serving is in of itself putting yourself behind somebody else, and putting them like not on a pedestal, but like you are putting them in front of yourself on the scale of importance in that moment. And so it's kind of like it's a humbling act because you're taking yourself off, because we are very like self-spotlight people. Like that's just human nature in with sin. And so you're kind of taking that spotlight and putting it on someone else and taking it away from yourself. But through that, you're not like elevating that person, exalting that person. It's still like, in a sense, like you're still putting the spotlight on God because you are serving as he served, which we'll get into. Like that's how Christ describes it, is to serve as he served. But you're taking yourself down off of like whatever throne or pedestal you put yourself on, and you're forced to put some, even if you don't want to, like just the act of serving, you're forcing yourself to kind of put them before yourself.
Okay. I definitely agree with that. For me, how I've always seen it has been kind of, you're just like you said, kind of lowering yourself. You're whatever you think, like whether it's helping a cause. I know like sometimes like food banks or stuff like that, just kind of helping the needy, whatever it is. Like you're putting yourself at the back and you're doing whatever it is to help someone else.
Yeah, but I think there's a very fine line there of like almost a faux putting yourself at the back, but like mentally you're exalting yourself for even having done that, and you're like, look at how I'm serving. Like,
Oh, yeah.
You're kind of like your actions are putting them ahead of you, but like mentally you're like, look at how humble I'm being. Like, look at how just perfectly I'm serving. Like, look at me. And that in of itself is so like, it just defeats the purpose. And so there is that like fine line of like genuine humility versus just humility in action while not really expressing that like to yourself, because then the spotlight's still on you. You haven't changed anything. You're just doing it to self-exalt yourself.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I guess that brings up the first sort of set of Bible verses that I wanted to bring up, and then I'll touch on how that's kind of been portrayed in my life, which is Galatians chapter 5, verses 13 through 15. And coming out of the NIV again, you, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. If you bite and devour each other, watch out, or you will be destroyed by each other. And that's exactly kind of how my like serving life has sort of been. I used to, like in college, I would love to be able to like, so what, like the job I worked for would have like days, like once a month or twice a month, where we would have like, we'd go to a food bank or that sort of thing. And it was always like a sort of brag, like, oh, I would try to get people to go because I was like, oh, I'm going to be there. You have to be there. And it kind of like guilt tripped them into like going to serve as well. And I was always like, I knew it was good. And this was kind of before I was like, actually like surrendering myself to Christ. And it was like, I always knew it was good. I always knew these were kind of the steps I needed to take, but I was always putting that like, as in a sense of pride. Like I was like, oh, I am doing this thing to make other people look at me as a good person. And then Galatians, what I just read in Galatians is like, oh no, you're supposed to do it humbly. And then becoming more devout and surrendering myself. Like, yeah, I'd probably send people like options or times where like they can't help, or like I just need like a friend to help me out. Like I remember asking Enze, a couple other friends for serving opportunities. But it was like, I'm not just like so widespread of like, oh yeah, I'm going to serve. Like if Brett doesn't show up or Enze doesn't show up, like I'm going to make fun of him for not showing up. It's like, oh, if you have the time, I would love to see you. But like, I'm doing this out of like a huge space for love. And I'm not like letting the people know that I am serving. Like, oh yeah, I'm doing this because like, I want to feel good about myself, that sort of thing. So. Yeah.
And I think like in Ephesians 6-7, it kind of is very convicting when you go in with that mindset. It says, serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not people. And so I think even to just sit here and think about like, in some sense, how funny it would be to show up and serve the Lord and then look at the Lord and be like, look at how cool I am for serving you. Like just that mental picture of his face of just kind of like, like just it would just be so dumb, and yet we can serve people and kind of almost expect to like look at them and get some kind of reward or some kind of praise or some kind of even like feel good feeling in ourselves. And so that's why I love this verse in Ephesians of like, we are serving, like serve everyone as if they are the Lord. And I think one, that just makes you serve more wholeheartedly, but two, I think it can, like, I think that just removes every ounce of going into it with pride. Like you want a humility check, serve like the least of these as if they were Christ. And I don't think you can have pride. I don't think it's possible.
And kind of piggybacking off of what you said, I have here Matthew 5:16. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Kind of feel like if you're coming in with that like prideful approach to it, it's kind of hard to like, you know, kind of do what this says and like let your good deeds glorify like God, like direct that attention to Him, like,
Yeah.
And that's just kind of something that just goes into it also. But
Yeah.
there's so many ways that you can serve, but serve incorrectly, I want to say. But like, yeah.
Yeah, and serving is such a good opportunity for like spreading the word to people that haven't heard it before. And I think when you go in and you're not showing that light, like I think you miss such a key opportunity that service provides to like unreached people, because it's so like it just creates a natural opportunity for someone to ask like, why are you doing this? And if you come into it with the wrong mindset, you might just be like, oh, because we're here to help, versus like, no, like there is a key reason we're doing this, and that's because we are extending the love and grace of Jesus Christ. And then let me tell you about that. I think if you come into it with that wrong mindset and you aren't showing that light, you miss such a key opportunity that I'm always convicted of. Like so many times that I serve and I leave, and I'm like, I feel like I didn't waste that. Like there was still something shown through my actions, but like it's such a key conversation starter that I think we miss out on when we do come into it with the wrong attitude.
Mm-hmm. And then I think one of the like an important sort of way I kind of looked at it, and doesn't always have to happen like this, is like, oh, if you like really want to like humble yourself as you're serving, do it in a way that it like makes you uncomfortable, or like you have to surrender in some sort of way, like waking up earlier, for instance, on the weekend, like waking up earlier to go serve, or like, you know, if all of your friends are hanging out, or like our friends group is hanging out, and it's like, no, I'm stepping away. Like, oh, I can't make it. And I'm doing this, or like going out on your own and just like doing something like if you want to pick up the trash in the street, or just any way that you can kind of just like help clean up the world around you, or even just like helping people like pick themselves up. And like when it really is like at an expense to your own comfort, that's when, instead of like, you know, God just looking at you and you're like bragging about it, and he's just like, dude, what are you doing? It's a matter of like, oh, he's like looking down at us, watching us do the things that are like hurting ourselves but uplifting others. And that's why I just like get the thought of like him just like cheering, like, let's go. Like he's really just like what, like he's down there doing God's work, and like just like patting us on the back saying like, well done, my faithful servant. So
yeah. And I don't remember where I heard it. Brock kind of touched on it today actually, but something about along the lines of like, if you are serving in the name of the Lord and you are comfortable, like your heart probably is not in the right place. Like there's just truly like the Lord calls us to uncomfortable circumstances, especially when serving other people. And so if you're just like, if you are comfortable, I think it's easy, if you were to do any self-reflection, to go, oh, like, yeah, my heart isn't in the right place. I'm kind of just doing this for myself, because any true act of service, I think, does, as you were getting at, like requires some kind of uncomfortability.
Yeah, and I guess for whoever didn't know or doesn't know what the service was about, it was I guess we're doing like Bible stories for the summer, and it was the Noah's Ark, and he was basically talking about like, oh, how he spent like, what was it, like 75 years to 100 years or something like that, like building this ark in preparation. Is like, oh, he had to go like find all these animals, like build this, while people were just like, dude, what are you doing? And like it was definitely like uncomfortable for him to have to build this enormous ark to then like just like pursue like the Lord. And one of the things I got actually was out of this today was like one of the most important messages was like obedience, or like obedience when you're not doing it like right away is disobedience.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so okay, like, you know, if you're getting called to serve and you're just like waiting on it, or like there's opportunities that are presenting itself, and like now that you know, like if people are watching, now that you know the importance of serving, and you're just like not wanting to get yourself uncomfortable, then you're like genuinely just disobeying the Lord. So
Yeah.
Sometimes in the family I grew up, VeggieTales was a very big thing. But with that story, I always think of it as like he was obeying God, right? And kind of serving, kind of by like, you know, building this ark that like people say could have taken like 55, I think, to 75 years is what he said. And like doing that while people are probably like, wow, you look stupid. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you building this giant boat and getting all these animals together? Right? Like in VeggieTales watching that, like, you know, I saw a clip of it actually the other day, and it was kind of funny because I didn't know today we would kind of be covering that. But it was kind of like they're saying that, and it's like sometimes you are serving somebody, you might be doing something like that, or even just obeying God, and like you're kind of getting that feedback, but you have to keep going because you're not kind of there to see what other people say, but for like God's like to obey God.
Yeah. I think our phones listen to me because literally, like the first meme I saw on Instagram today after church was something about like Noah's neighbor feeling the first drop of rain after he made fun of Noah for like 5 decades for building this ark. And he's like, oh no, like starts beating on the door.
It's too late, buddy.
You done messed up. Try to marry into the family real quick.
Yeah, you're cooked.
It's over.
So, question now. What do you guys find difficult about serving? I feel like we already covered it, but like, is there anything specific with you guys that you find difficult about it?
Let me. That's not what I was looking for.
Like me personally, it's really the waking up, or like if I have something going on at that same time and then I have an opportunity to serve, kind of being like, okay, let me like not do this. Like depending on how important it is. If it's like a giant family event or something, like I might be like, okay, next time. But like usually it's kind of, if it's really early in the morning, that right there, very hard for me. But sometimes you guys gotta fight through it. But what do you guys have? Anything?
well, I guess this is the second part I want to mention in 1 Peter chapter 4. It like just basically talks about like living for God and like suffering for being a Christian and that sort of thing. So the main verse, I would highly suggest to read that whole chapter. It's only 19 verses. But the one verse that I did want to bring up was verse 10 in that chapter. And each of you should use whatever gifts you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms, in NIV. And it's one of those things, it's like, okay, my gifts are different than Enze's gifts, that are different than Brett's gifts. And we can all serve in similar yet very vastly different ways. And, you know, if I have, like, for instance, if I have this time allocated to like, oh, I don't have anything, or like this time allocated to like, I have to work, but other people don't. So they can use that opportunity, like to go serve in that sort of moment, or different skills. Like, oh, if I, you know, Enze's, you guys are taller than me. So if you guys have to do something that takes like, you know, reaching high or whatever, or like I have to do some like lifting or that sort of, or I guess all of us can like do some lifting because we're strong individuals. We have the opportunity to serve in that way. But like, let's say like a 65-year-old woman isn't able to do the same things that we are able to do. However, she's able to be gracious to others in different ways. So it's difficult to like put everybody like, oh, this is the only way you can serve. No, you can serve in just so many different ways. And it's all about using, like it says in that verse, like using your skills that you're like you currently have to then further help other people.
Yeah, I think on that line, I think the thing I struggle with most about it is like some faith aspect of like having faith that God will like graciously equip me with the skills I need to like faithfully serve in a situation where I know I don't have the skills for. Where if it's like an opportunity, like if it's just something that presents itself and it's like, I don't know how to do that, but it's a need that needs met. Like right now, sometimes I can struggle to just like, okay, like God has the ability to like just graciously gift me with the ability to meet this need for like one of his children. And so sometimes I can kind of push that off or not take it seriously because it's like, I don't know, like I don't necessarily have the spiritual gift for that. And so I think that that's something I just need to work on of like, we don't like spiritual gifts aren't this concrete, like, you have the gift of this and you don't have any of these. Like they're kind of this like free flowing, almost like as a need arises, like the Spirit can gift you with the ability to meet that. Like when I first started doing kids at Redeemer, I did it because Brock asked me to, and I wanted to have an internship at the church. And when Brock asks you to do something, you don't say no. So I'm like, sure, I don't even like kids. I'll do kids. And like, no patience with kids. In that first week, I was like, who was I? Like, all of a sudden I was like the most patient, kind-hearted person around kids I'd ever been. And like that has continued to grow in me. And so I think we have to recognize the ability for like the Spirit to gift us to meet the needs of the church and of the people. And sometimes I just struggle to like believe that. And so I can kind of push the opportunities to serve and meet needs aside because it's like I don't have the ability to do that. But it's like that's kind of in some sense like disrespectful almost to the power of the Spirit and like the desire for the needs of his children to be met.
Mm-hmm. And we are just vessels to carry out his works. And I don't want to mention I don't want to like have it be like, oh, I have this ability, let me go use this. And like, yeah, I might have a different ability than somebody else. So like if we're going to like some food pantry, we're not going to have somebody like an elderly woman lift something when I'm also there. I didn't want it to be like, oh, since this person is handicapped in this way, they can't do this thing. Just as like, oh, when I went there, I learned so much about how stuff is run. Just driving different things, like not forklift certified over here, but like learned how to like operate and like kind of move just kind of how it works. As much as like I would have never expected you to like know anything about kids, then you're just like, why am I in this scenario? And you're like, oh, like just your heart was pouring out into it.
Yeah.
And you, like you just said, you probably would have. You were like, why? Like why was I doing this? Like I just feel so lost in this action. But it's like, oh no. I'm like, it's just a process of learning in life. Like you would never be like, none of us are like, oh yeah, I cannot wait to like do this, like handle kids and like clean up after them. Is like, oh no, we would rather just like go eat food at like your place after church. But it's like, oh no, we have that opportunity to serve. We're gonna God's going to allow us to learn certain things and like help us grow and mature while we're on this earth. So
yeah. And I still don't know anything about kids. I treat them like they're like you guys. We're just like, what's up, man? Like fist bumps all around. We get hype about winning all the hallway games. We run a D1 level program at my table when it comes to the hallway competition games. My table has never lost a hallway relay race. It will never happen. What? Oh, no, it is. All the other table leaders kind of stand behind. They're like, let's go. Like, and if someone messes up, they like walk over. We follow them down the relay. We are like, this is what you do. This is what you need to do. Let's go. Let's go. Like, everyone sit down. We don't lose. D1 level program at the
relay
relay
locked
races.
in, dude.
Oh, beyond locked in.
before the summer transition, like grade level move up, in like, what would that have been? Like March, April. We had maybe the best like athletic kindergarten first grade table in church history. We probably could have lapped teams at the relay races. Like we could have done it. We could have easily done it twice. We were locked in. So it when we only tied the trivia game today, it was our conference prestige went down. Our program prestige went down a little bit. We took a hit in the recruiting department, but we'll get it back. They just keep giving me random kids. I'm like, no, let me hand pick the ones I want because I need the ones that can compete. I need competers. Quit giving me the random kids that I don't know if they're good or not. Give me the ones that we know can run.
I like to believe that any child can be trained to run fast, jump high, or whatever with a little bit of effort.
Yeah, but not in the middle of not at 11:15 on a Sunday morning when none of the other table leaders or kids care.
Just give them English. Give them a reason.
Oh, I do. Before we start, I'm like, guys, you sit at this table. We do not lose.
That is
I will look them in the eye before the relay race. You sit at this table. We do not lose. Let's lock in. Let's go. And then we don't lose. Then we sit down and they all get fist bumps and we go in the big group D1 level program.
But then it literally inspires the kids to be like, oh, I want to go see Brett again and run relay races because we get the win and puts that high value in their mind of going to church.
Yeah.
But you said you feel like everybody can be trained, which I think is true. But that's going back to that basketball talk. That first episode. 5'10" or something like that, and you weren't able to get.
He
rebounds.
was 5'7".
Hey, look at me now. We're a whole lot better. We're a whole lot better.
No.
It just took a year or two in the gym. but
it's one of those we win the race, but it's beating the 82-year-old grandma off the line at the red light. She didn't know we were racing. The other tables don't know we're racing, but we still win. It's a race if you make it one. That's all I'm saying. And we don't lose.
It's just being prepared, and I guess that that moves us into the Rwanda trip you just went on. What was kind of the preparation and that you had to go into that with before you started, while you were there having to prepare for the day and kind of how that trickled down into when you came back. So I want to hear you just rant about your Rwanda trip because I haven't heard too much about it and it's been a month or so since then.
Yeah. In terms of preparation, shout out and you could have definitely moved the mic, man.
I turned to the side.
Your bar shot up halfway above that white thing. That thing moved.
It'll live.
You're gonna have to mute the mic just on that little spot.
The thing, dude, it was up there. That thing skyrocketed. Yeah, in terms of preparation, both a shout out and apology to Maggie because she sent me videos on learning the Rwandan language because I asked and then I never watched any of them. So I knew one phrase going in and I don't actually remember what it means. I just actually know the phrase.
Could you say the phrase? What was the phrase?
Muraho. I think it means hi or it's how are you. Might be how are you. Again, I'm sorry. She told me 48 times at least. Every time I don't remember. But I know other phrases and I don't really remember what they mean either. So I have I remember I have bits and pieces of the language memorized, but I was supposed to know that going in because that was something I talked about being excited about, and then I just didn't watch them. So again, apologies for that. She tried. Our preparation was a lot more group oriented on just what we were what to expect, what we were going to do. It was hard to prepare because with that culture, just you never know what your plans are going to be. Half the time we would be halfway to where we were going to go and then find out we were going somewhere different. It just completely, you never knew. So it was kind of hard to prepare because we didn't know really what we were preparing for. And then there we had these little, I don't know, a lot smaller than this, kind of this size, devotional books of devotionals for each day. That kind of just built on each other. I should have brought it with me, but one was about they just kind of took a different passage of scripture, but it kind of throughout the week was hey, here's how we are called to serve. And then the next one was something I think about here's we're called to serve in this way. Here's why, because Christ died for us. And it's what does Christ's death mean for us? And so it was kind of this progression throughout the week And so doing that every morning kind of forced your heart to be in the right spot. Yeah, and so preparation is something I struggle with just in general, so I don't know if that's a great thing for me to talk on. Like, I'm much more of a, like, my brain needs spontaneity versus, I think that's how you say it, versus like a script. You give me a script, I have no idea, I'm going to get lost. But like, I need like spontaneity and creativity. So preparation is something I struggle with. But I think spiritual preparation was more just like praying each morning, like, I don't know what we're about to go do. I don't know who we're about to go meet. I don't know where we're going. Like, I don't even know if where we're going, like, is registered on like any map or like satellite thing. Like, that's probably the remotest of places I will ever be in my life. And I don't know like what we're going to get the opportunity to do, or the opportunity, like what conversations we'll get to have the opportunity to have. But just kind of a like constant prayer throughout the day of like, truly just like, God, like, guide my heart and guide my mind, because like it's so prone to wander and to get caught up in different things and to be prideful of like, wow, like I'm overseas helping like build the foundation of this church, rather than like, wow, like just, it's so easy for me to get caught up in that. And so it was just constant prayers of like, guide my heart, guide my mind, like guide these conversations. Just like, I just want to be a vessel that's there, that every once in a while gets to turn around and just be like, dude, like this is the coolest place I've ever been in my life. And so, yeah, the preparation for me was more of just a constant prayer and constant just calling on God to like keep me grounded, because it would have been easy for me to kind of get distracted from that.
And then I guess what were you like specifically like doing there? I know like you just talked about the preparation, but what were you like actively doing? Like, were you building houses? Were you like teaching people something? Like, what, when you were there, what were you like, what was your like main goal for like your group or yourself?
Yeah. So our lead pastor and his wife and our witness pastor and his wife were putting on like a pastors and wives retreat for like pastors from all over East Africa. I'm not going to get them all, but there were pastors from like Kenya, Nairobi, Uganda, Rwanda, like that all flew in to be part of like this conference that they were putting on for the whole week. And so while they were doing that throughout the day, we had so many travel days. I get mixed up. We left Sunday, got there Monday night. Tuesday was like our 12-hour bus ride. So Wednesday we went and helped like build the foundation of this church. They're just building out like right next to this mountain. It was like the coolest place I've ever been. Like right next to this mountain, they're just beginning to build this church for this community. And so we were helping like just get the cement down, get the bricks on. Like we built it up honestly a pretty decent ways. We were partnered with like the choir of like the main church we were like that Redeemer is partnered with. Their choir was having like I think they called it an evangelical week. So they were already doing that stuff. We just kind of like slid in and we're like, hey, we'll just come help you for the week. And so I think there were 8 of us that went. And so Wednesday we just kind of helped like build the foundation of this church. Thursday we went out into like the middle of nowhere into like this village that I genuinely like, like it would have been, I should have had my mom like screenshot my life 360 of it, because it would have been cool just to see where exactly we were at. Like we left in some sense like civilization, not in like a derogatory, but like the city. And then for the next hour, we continued to drive until we were where, like, it was wild. It was so cool. And so there the choir had been asked to help rebuild this widow's house. Well, actually, they had just been asked to help, like, rebuild her, like, outdoor, like, lavatory because it had fallen in. And they showed up and she didn't have, like, any walls on her house because they had all fallen in. But she didn't, like, feel comfortable asking them to do all that, so she just asked for one thing, and they're like, absolutely not. So they had already kind of built these walls up before we had gotten there. And with just the way the climate works, what you can do is just like, in a sense, take mud, and when you put it on the walls with the way like on the outside of the walls with the way like the climate works. It will like bake onto the walls and keep the walls sturdy. And so part of our job was like some of the walls inside still had to be built. So we had a couple of people helping with that. Me and a couple other people got to just have fun at the end and just throw mud. Like genuinely just take mud. I thought I would like screw up my hand because I had spent a couple hours before that shoveling like the mud for people to do stuff with, and had like, I didn't realize my hand was bleeding like from shoveling. And so there was like blood all down my arm from where it had gotten on the handle. And then as the handle would move, so it looked like my whole hand was bleeding, but it was just a little bit that had gotten everywhere. And so just like open wound, just taking like straight mud from the ground, which probably wasn't smart. Hopefully my mom doesn't watch this and finds out that that's what happened, because I didn't tell her the whole story of that. I just told her my hand was messed up. But so yeah, just little stuff like that. Like some people were just helping take care of the kids like of the village as we were doing that. Then we went back to that same church and helped like continue to build up that foundation the next day. It was just really cool we went to the school, and got to just hang out with the kids. I made a half court shot that like hit so you know how when you shoot it, you can shoot it. This is bad. You can shoot it in Zale, especially know what I'm talking about. And it'll like hit this part of the rim. But when you add enough spin to it, as it hits this, it like rolls into the net and then rolls down. So it like hit this and rolled in, and they all thought it went in. And I'm like, it didn't go in. But like 150 kids were like, oh, and like run up and hug me and are like picking me up. And I'm like, it didn't go in, but I'm going to get hype anyways. And then we all got on the bus and we're all like, yeah, that didn't go in. But yeah, it was really cool. It more fit what I like to do in terms of like, I struggle to like just show up to like if we just went to someone's house there in that village and we're like, hey, like, have you ever heard about Jesus? Like I would be maybe it's something I just need to get better at and more comfortable with. Again, uncomfortable with serving. But I struggle to like have that conversation. But as I'm like doing something next to somebody, as I'm shoveling or as I'm throwing mud, like having that conversation becomes a lot easier for me because there's like a shared unity in what we're doing. And then it kind of like that conversation just naturally flows out of it rather than just sitting in someone's house, like staring at them going, have you heard about Jesus? Like, so it fit more like what I wanted to do. It was very hard to leave because like the OCD parts of my brain were like, dude, like the church isn't done. Like it's not even close to being done. And so one thing I'm thinking through, it's not feasible now or realistic for probably a while, but I think it'd be cool to go down there and just be like a floater between all the different ministries, because that's how churches get built down there, is like other people come down or like the village just slowly builds it up. And so I think it'd be cool, like you partner with, like I would go down and partner with the church that we worked with, like, and spend a few months like getting that church off the ground. And then as they don't need help, like, okay, we're going to send you out like to Uganda because this church is building a church in the village, and I'm out there for a few months. Like that would be, I would be so in my element of always in some place new, like something new. I'm constantly like learning and readjusting and learning different things, but also always doing something, like always contributing something. And then those relationships grow out of that. And so I'm kind of thinking through like what that looks like. How would that be possible? But again, not realistic right now, but definitely something that it's like, that's kind of a dream of like, that would be really cool to just go down there and constantly just like bounce around and like, oh, hey, this church needs built, or hey, like we're going to send you over here for a couple weeks because this home needs rebuilt, like, and just constantly just be someone that is just genuinely there as like however you need me to serve, I'm here to serve. And just kind of, as Inze said with his, like just being a light in that way is so up my alley that I'm just trying to figure out what that looks like and how to apply that here, because that doesn't have to just be there. So trying to figure out how that's been the hard thing, is I feel convicted that I don't do that here when it's something I want to do there. And so trying to figure out how to do all that.
No, I guess Okay, so I guess one of the things that you have mentioned before is like trying to get into like college ministry and that sort of thing, and like starting new things. And I guess like that's like kind of what your calling is like starting new things, helping them build up, and just kind of like going on to the next, and like create like just constantly like creating churches and not having like your name tied to it, which is like really cool because it's like, oh yeah, I can go here, like, you know, help them out, then just move on to the next thing, and then move on to the next thing, and then move on to the next thing. Is that something like Redeemer like does or has plans for? Or I know you just like got promoted, so you know, like episode 1 where you're just like, I've been an intern for 6 months, please promote me. Now it's actually coming to fruition. Like is that something you can bring up? Is that something they already have plans for? Or?
I think it's something I need to talk about. As we were talking about what my job responsibilities would be, I mentioned like half joking, half serious, like the more like international mission stuff I can do, like please, like put me on it, let me do it. But I think it comes more, I don't know if Redeemer necessarily has that, because it's like that more just, that kind of role more just fits the way things happen down there in terms of like, you're not hiring like a construction company to come build this church. Like it is all like the community doing the work. Like it is all the people doing the work. And so it is easier to go in versus a like as Redeemer plants a church. Like it would be hard to like, oh, let me go help them build. Like they would look at me like I was psycho. Like what the heck are you doing here? But down there it would be more of a like, they know how it works. They know what they're doing. It's all community based. It would be easy to kind of integrate yourself and be like, dude, like I'm here to live among you and serve for the next few months until this is built. And I think that would be cool, especially like not just like get some like cushy hotel in the capital city and then like drive out, but like I'm here to live among you and like fellowship with you as we build this church. And like, then that becomes an opportunity to like disciple people, and to like even reach out to people in the village that are like, why are you here? Like, why is this church being built? Why are you here? And so that would just be so fun of just like integrating yourself into a new place and building that up, and then like integrating yourself in like, yeah, I think it'd be tiring, but it would be really cool. And so I just don't think like, I don't know what that would look like here, but it's kind of a more like culturally specific role that I'm just dreaming of, trying to figure out what that would truly look like, if it's even a thing or possible. But I love to dream. So
No, right. And that's like one of the coolest things. And I know I talked to Jeremy about this, and he's like, oh, you have like leadership qualities. Like it's just like a God-given talent. And I was like asking him, was like, does that mean you want me to like be a discipleship group leader or that sort of thing? He's like, no. Wow. He's like, you know,
no, not really.
So, I mean, going on that, but he's like, yeah, it's so cool that like, if you're not a leader or you're not in that position and you're like naturally wanting to be like a leader and kind of help shepherd the people around you, it's more inspiring than like to the other people than the actual leader. So it's like you're going there and you're wanting to help out and you have absolutely like no leadership responsibilities. It's like purely just like out of the graciousness of your heart.
Yeah.
And then that inspires everybody that's like, oh, maybe there's a leader or like the pastor that's trying to like has the idea to create this church. You're just going there, like you're just wanting to help out. And then the community sees like, oh, this person like traveled from, you know, wherever and then is helping us. Like now we want to help him help us. And then it feeds back in. And then everybody has like that positive sort of notion within it. You get to teach people and that sort of thing. And then next thing you know, you're just like, gotta do the next one. And then just continue to move around. So
Shout out to the pastor of the church we were building the foundation for. There was not a person we met that man didn't know. And that man was out there moving. That dude, I don't know, maybe someone can correct me on this, but like easily got to be 60 plus. Like that dude looked like he just looked old. Not in a bad way. He just looked old. But that man was out there like just again, like culturally with his role, like full suit, like suit pants, suit jacket, like full drip in like 75-degree plus heat. Like not just standing there being like, I'm the pastor, look at me, I'm here. Like that dude was moving bricks, like putting them where they needed to go, like moving bat. Like that dude put in work. And I'm like that, like you want to talk about like the perfect example of like what it means to lead. Like that dude knew everybody. He put in work. Like that dude was cool. it was pretty like inspiring of like, wow, like anytime I like thought I was tired, I'm like, no, I'm not. Like that guy's got to be like cleaning his suits was probably disgusting, but like that dude put in work, and it was just really cool to see like just that community aspect of like, well, of course I'm going to help build the church. Like it's my church. Like, of course I'm going to be hands on with it. And so it was just really cool to see.
I think you might have answered this already. How many people, like, I know some mission trips, usually the girls will do one thing, the guys will do the other. Was that kind of with this also?
No, we were going to split up and have like two different teams. It was actually funny enough, like a point of stress for some of us of like what team we were going to be on, like who we were going to be with. But like then once we got there, we were all just, there were 3 of us guys and 5 girls. And so we kind of just all stayed together. Like we would split up when we got there. Like the church, because he owns a landscaping company, like Buck immediately was just like put on shovel duty. Like we walked up and they're like, we need someone to shovel. And we all kind of looked at him and they're like, here you go. Like shovel duty. Curtis was Curtis half the time. We didn't know where he was. I love that man. The man is my soul animal. Like, we were like, where's Curtis? And no one would have any clue. And then he'd come out with like some like kid on his shoulders or something. Like, where in the world did you go? But like he would kind of just be more of like the relational, like going around and talking to people like, do you know Jesus? Like, let me tell you about Jesus, or talking to the kids. Like a couple of the girls were really good, like with the kids, and would always keep the kids busy. And like, because when you're building the church, like all the kids from the village would just sit around and watch, like 50 of them. Like it was pretty cool. And so they would like get the kids involved and keep the kids entertained and like have fun with the kids and just give them something to do rather than just like watch us move bricks. And then like I kind of felt more led to just like, I wanted to get something done. Maybe it had like to a detriment sometimes. Like I just wanted to get stuff done. And so like we would kind of like disperse a little bit in terms of like what we were doing, but we were all kind of like one group, which made like those 2-hour like bus rides so much fun, because like I kind of knew some people. I think some people didn't know like anybody going in. But when you spend 12 hours on a bus together on Tuesday and then like 2 to 3 hours on a bus together like every day the rest of the week, you get to know each other like really well, really quickly. And so it was kind of cool to see like the team grow through that, just as we talked about like what we learned from what we were doing and how much we loved what we were doing. So it was really cool. We all it was cool to see like the different gifts of each person being used in different ways, all like for the same, like we were all accomplishing the same thing, just in different ways, like in accordance with like just what we were naturally like gifted to do. And it was really cool to see. Sorry, that was a long answer to a like, yes, we were all together.
You're good.
No, that's awesome. Is there did you have another question? Do you have any other like just like points or anything like that you feel like you missed before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I guess one would be just like, if you do watch this and you go to Redeemer, like take advantage of serving opportunities. It's something I need to be better at. Reach out to Curtis Hampton, greatest man of all time. But like he'll send you emails about service. I don't know if that's what you were talking about, but like service opportunities throughout the weekends. And I'm not going to lie, they are the highlight of my week. Like the emails, because they are Curtis Hampton emails and you never know what they are going to say. Like one email we got was that we were going to leave, I think at like 8:17 a.m. And then he sent an email out that one of the service opportunities got canceled. And then in that same like thing said that now we were going to leave for the other place at like 8:13 a.m. Like it's so random. He just and then there's just like little like just funny stuff. So even if just for the emails, like reach out to him. But like truly, there are so many service opportunities that our church offers, and something that like has convicted me is like how willing I was to serve there, but how I haven't really like jumped on any opportunities to do that since I've been back. And so I think just like, I think that'd be maybe even like just like the three of us need to go do something. Like I think it helps build relationships among people, as I talked about with our group, like as you do that with each other. So I just, take advantage of that. If you don't know how to do that, I don't know. I don't actually know how to help. So I don't know why I said that. I guess just look him up on the website. I think his email's on there.
Just emailing Curtis at redeemerbible.church.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I only know that because of that serving opportunity.
Yeah.
And then experiencing those emails, like you email them and it's like 14 paragraphs long. And then the next one is just, thank you, sir. And then he didn't answer your question. It's like, okay. And then you email him back.
Dude, his text, man. Oh my goodness. Like any text he sends is absolute quality. Like you have to read it 3 times because 1, you have to figure out what in the world it's saying. And 2, it is just incredible. I love that man. So getting to spend like a week and a half with him was a joy. Granted, I feel like I spent like 5 minutes with him because I never knew where he was to spend time with him, but it was just fun.
Yeah, or at the food pantry. Like I was outside and like some other people were inside. I don't know what he was doing. I saw him like for like 30 seconds every hour, like you were talking about. But then you'd like be like, oh, eat some food, and bring us like the little like Hostess cupcakes or something like that. He's like, oh, take one, and then like I was like, no, I'm good. And he got me to finally get one thing. And you would offer me for that same thing, like every single time he came out. He's like, "Oh, take it." I was like, "Oh."
I think what's cool about him that I need to apply though is like, if you were to go back, I think, and like ask people like at the food pantry or even like at the different places we were at, like, hey, like, what did you think like about Curtis? Like, just tell me about Curtis. Like, I bet you like 90% of the people could like explain in some way he served them, and you had no idea. Like you didn't see it, he wasn't there, it wasn't visible. You don't know if he's off like pulling like a me at Chick-fil-A 5 minutes into the shift and already like sitting in the bathroom because you're tired. Like you don't know what in the world he's doing. But like then I bet you it would come to find out like 90% of the people there would be like, oh yeah, like we had like, even if it was just like a 1 minute conversation, 1 minute conversation with Curtis is like gold. But like he probably interacted with everyone there and served everyone there in some way. And so something I need to take away from that is like like it comes back, I think, to that humility. Like our service doesn't always have to be shown. It doesn't have to be on like the pictures. We don't have to be on like the slideshow of like the serve day thing. Like it doesn't have to be like, oh, like I saw Wyatt do this. Like maybe no one saw you do anything, and maybe they all walk away and they're like, I don't know if Wyatt did anything, but like the people there know like how much you did. And I think that's more important than if the people you're with think you did nothing at all. Not that I think Curtis did nothing at all, but like I just think that's something to take away is like, doesn't matter like who sees. I think I don't know where it's at, but like when Jesus rebukes the Pharisees of like, you do everything in public and then you close the door and you're a completely different person. Like it's who you are, like when no one sees, and doing those things, even when you don't get recognized and even when absolutely no one knows, that carries the most weight.
It's not a matter about what we see. It's a matter about what he sees.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Waiting for you to say it.
Awkward silence.
All right, so I think the way we carried this episode was probably a lot better than the other ones. I really truthfully enjoyed kind of the openness of the conversation. I know you were mentioning how you just thrive in these sort of scenarios, and I think this is probably how we're going to start to conduct this a little bit better. I know we're constantly like reflecting on how we can do better. Forgot to say this at the beginning of the episode, but make sure you're liking, subscribing. It really helps us out. Seeing those kind of numbers and seeing like who we're helping. We'll probably end up kind of putting like a couple of like the base questions that we put in the description so people could follow along. I know I'm saying this now as if you watched to this point, you probably have seen this, or you just got distracted when we were talking and then saw it in the description. But again, I shake your hand. And then there's that little. Oh, okay. I was waiting for another flimsy handshake out of you guys. Brett again is in the palm tree shirt. So
yep. Oh, and the A shell hat.
4 for 4.
4 for 4. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned to next week where we're going to be talking about fasting and some of the fasts that we have done within the past month. So, all right. Take care, guys.